Hello, and welcome back to It Started with Emily Doe. I know it's been like 3 years since I've last uploaded, and a lot has happened in that time, both online and in my personal life. um, I guess really to just explain where I've been is I've been all over the fucking place. I was in college when I started this channel, and I didn't graduate, but I'm no longer in college. I've worked several, like, hardcore adult career type jobs, and I'm currently, I guess technically not unemployed. I have a part-time job, but that doesn't pay the bills at all. So, like, my main job laid me off. I have no sense of direction or purpose right now. So here I am, back to commentate on the goings on in the world and my life, and to educate people on rape culture and how we can do better as a society. Back on my high horse, y'all. But anyways, I guess you'll see by whatever I title this video what we're talking about today, and I figured this would be my most viewed video is talking about how I was groomed, and I should have rewatched that video to see everything exactly what I said. I know it was in relation to cryotic and, you know, how a lot of people in power abuse their power. And so I guess since then, a lot has happened to add to my story of being groomed that I figured it would be good to update you guys on, because a lot of people seemed interested in my own personal story. So I guess about probably where I left off was that at the time that I filmed my initial grooming video, I had thought that the statute of limitations was up in my case and that I couldn't report him. Since then, through working with a couple nonprofits geared towards helping survivors of assault, I learned that the statute of limitations was not up. So, since then, I have gone through the process of reporting my assault, and I just wanted to share with everyone my experience with that, how I feel about it, and where things are currently and where they will go from here. So, I guess if you want to know my story, I will link my grooming story so you can kind of get caught up. But I'm going to pick up that story from May 28th, 2022. Around that time, I had a friend recently come forward about her own story of abuse and assault, and I was being very supportive of her, as you do for your friends in need. And admittedly, I found her story to be a little triggering, as a lot of survivors of sexual assault will find other people's stories to be. And so it really started me down this rabbit hole of thinking about my abuser, and I, against my better judgment, did a Google search on his name, and I discovered that he was a high school science teacher in a school district about 3 hours from where I lived. Now, that was probably the most terrifying thing I could see, because I know for a fact that I am not this man's first victim, and I know for a fact that his target age range is high school girls. So, seeing that really sparked a lot of fear in me, but also a lot of anger, and it pushed me to action. So I made a public post on my personal Facebook page detailing just everything that I went through with this man and how he groomed me and continued to try and manipulate me even beyond our quote unquote relationship. So, with this long post that I'm not going to bother reading, I've told my story in the previous video, but along with this post, I had screenshots from when I was still in high school, but after our relationship had ended. And in these screenshots, it's attached to his full name, his face, and in them he states my age at the time, his age, that we had sex and displayed manipulative and abusive tendencies. So, I felt that these screenshots were really good to like back up my claims. I also included his school photo and the school district that he worked for. So, people just knew what he looked like then and where he was working. And from there, I reached out to a local rape crisis center and we discussed my options and we discussed getting into therapy and everything like that, which I believe I'm still on a wait list for. Gotta love mental health in America. Am I right? But we discussed how the statute of limitations was not up yet in my case. And through them, I got in contact with the local police department where I shared my story with law enforcement for the first time. The cop that I talked to first was younger. You could tell he was very uncomfortable when I, was speaking in great detail what happened to me. I was with the rape crisis counselor the whole time, and she was very validating and affirming and kind, and I'm so grateful that she was there for that, because otherwise I don't know if I would have been able to get through it. Also at the time, I began working with a nonprofit that I used to volunteer for called Warriors Care. I would give the name of the local rape crisis center that I worked with, but I don't really want to give away my location, so I'm not going to name them. But Warriors Care then stepped in also to provide me with resources and help me reach out to the school district that he was employed by. So together, which mostly they did all the work, I was just kind of there to fill in blanks and sign my name to the emails. But we reached out to the school district he was employed by, and I shared my story and my concerns, and that prompted them to open an investigation. Now, we went back and forth for months. Initially, I believe the superintendent responded, and he was very concerned, very kind, only a little dismissive, which I guess I don't want to say it's to be expected because it shouldn't be expected. I'm very much of the firm belief that we should believe survivors when they come forward and tell their stories. But there was very little pushback. An investigation was started, and that was exciting to see. In the meantime, while that was going on, I was bounced around from one jurisdiction to another because I was told that that was the correct jurisdiction. So then I met in June of last year with a detective from the jurisdiction from where my rapes had occurred. And so I went in even greater detail with him, and it was honestly very triggering. because like one of the things that the detective just kept repeating to me was, why did you wait so long to come forward? Or, I don't know if anything's gonna happen because you waited so long. Like, first of all, I didn't even realize that I was fucking groomed until I was 19 years old. And at that point, I thought that the statute of limitations was up. If I had known that the statute of limitations was not up, I would have come forward at 19 instead of at 23. So there's that. And like, the detective would switch from being like really empathetic and like kind or whatever to them being like, oh well, I don't think we're gonna do anything. And it's like really frustrating and disheartening, and like that's not the part of the story that makes me kind of wish I didn't come forward, but it just feels like more care can be shown to victims, especially someone who is victimized as a child. That's just my 2 cents on the matter. But, so, also around that time, after I had reported to the detective in the correct jurisdiction, I had received a bunch of pamphlets and a letter in the mail from the city's district attorney's office that was really affirming at the time, because it was a letter basically stating, we believe you've been the victim of a crime, here's all these resources for you, just know that it wasn't your fault, and all this other like really positive stuff. And like when I got that letter, I cried because it just felt so validating, that, and like I felt like I was being taken seriously, and that something positive was going to come from me coming forward. I'll go on to explain how the district attorney has since completely shattered that, but if I'm trying to go chronologically, I'll continue to go chronologically. And see, my goal from coming forward was never to put him in jail. As much as that would be nice, like, that's not my goal. I want him to be on a sex offender registry so he can no longer work with kids. That's my goal. I don't want him to be able to victimize anyone else. I don't want him to have easy access to the kids in the exact age range that he targets. That's my goal. That's all I want. And I feel like that's a very fair thing to want. And I stressed to the detective, and I've stressed to everybody since I've come forward, to anyone that I've come forward to, that's my goal. I don't want him to be able to work with children. So, from there, we kept going back and forth with the school district, and it changed hands from the superintendent to somebody else within the district, or I think a new superintendent was appointed or something like that. I'm not entirely sure how it changed hands, but it changed hands to a gentleman that very quickly went on the defensive. He also started his email with, please don't interpret this as being defensive, and then went on to be very defensive. He also referred to me as a girl, which I found very insulting. So, that was cool. Which we called him out on his language, and then he promptly backpedaled and apologized. And then also basically gave me the hopes and prayers spiel. So I responded myself versus letting the Warriors Care team respond, and I basically stated that, I understand his position in all of this is to, protect his staff and come at things with, an eye of scrutiny, and to not take these allegations lightly, but that I hope that he wasn't just trying to brush it under the rug, and that he was taking it seriously, as it's not just my abuser's life and livelihood at stake, but, all the children in his care. So, I also offered any help that I could give if he had any questions, and then he proceeded to not respond until December 20th, 2022. We got the update that he resigned from his position with the school district. Nothing else, just that. So I don't know what led to his resignation. From how I understand that these things work is I'm pretty sure they did their investigation and he was given the option to resign or be fired, and so he chose to resign. Now, my problem with this is that this means that he can potentially go and lie in other job applications and say that he left for other reasons besides, this investigation. So, I fear, rightfully so, that he will just end up with another teaching job. I also fear that he will end up moving back to the city that I live in, to either move in with his parents or get a job closer to home. And I worry that I'm going to run into him. But yeah, then I guess in the midst of all of this, in October of 2022, I got a letter from the district attorney's office saying, "There's not enough evidence. We're not going to do anything. Thanks for trying." Now, obviously, I am paraphrasing and editorializing, but yeah, that was a punch in the gut, especially considering how I basically handed them a signed confession. So, for a while, I was very defeated, and even getting the news that he resigned wasn't very exciting. And naturally, this was soul crushing, if I'm honest. And I kept working with Warriors Care, and I'm still working with them today. We talked about maybe trying to do a civil suit, but when I got in contact with a lawyer for that, the statute of limitations was up. So we eventually reached out to the district attorney's office to kind of see what prompted them to decide what they decided on, considering how we all kind of felt it was bullshit, considering the evidence that they had. And so I had a list of questions prepared to ask the DA. Like, basically, like, if I'm technically not the victim of a crime, am I still entitled to, like, victim, like, support services, like free or reduced cost therapy, get help with my medical bills because I've been hospitalized because of this. Like, that's another thing I didn't say. It's trying to keep this, like, in chronological time order, and I'm failing miserably. But in August of 2022, right before my birthday, I ended up admitting myself to the psychiatric hospital because I couldn't handle the reoccurring flashbacks and just having to relive my trauma to come forward. And so now I have a whole lot of medical debt because of that. And, like, it'd be really nice if I could get some kind of support, because I can't even afford my bills right now, but that's a whole other thing. So, I had all these questions, and also, like, one of the questions was what, like, prompted them to make the decision that they did. And, I actually, like, recorded this so that way I could listen back in case I, like, I don't know, blacked out from anxiety, because I basically did. And I've listened to it a couple times, and it's no less triggering every time I listen to it. But a male person in the district attorney's office reviewed my case and decided it was a bad breakup, that I regretted, that I wanted some type of revenge years later. Because mind you, it's been like a decade, or it had almost been a decade when I had come forward. And that there was no force involved. Now, that is a complete lie, because there was force involved, and I told that to the first police officer I talked to. I told that to the detective. I have said that over and over again, because the first time we quote unquote had sex, I was forced into it. There was no consent given. Now, I'm kind of meek and I don't like confrontation. So normally I would have just kind of taken hearing that and been just like, oh, okay, and moved on with my life. But God, I fucking couldn't. So I called that out, like, immediately. I was like, Mrs. DA, with all due respect, that is false. That is not what I told the police officer. That has never been the case. There was force involved. And so she pulled up the detective's notes, and she was like, yeah, this does contradict what you said in your testimony. Or not confession. Whatever, testimony, that works. And so she said, oh, we'll look into this more. And then I told her I have Snapchat messages from when I was 19 about him also admitting to what he had done to me. Like, I have more evidence to give you. And she was like, cool, we'll send you an email. You can put your evidence, like, in that in a reply to that email, and then we'll have it, and we'll be good to go. I never got that email. I followed up to try to get that email, and I still never got that email. The most recent news on this is that me and the interim director of Warriors Care have reached out to the district attorney's office multiple times through email. No response. She called and didn't really get anywhere. And so my case is in limbo. And to be honest, any hope that I had of seeing justice is pretty much gone. Like, if anything good comes of this case, anything else, like, I'll take that as a win, but I am thoroughly destroyed. I guess I don't regret coming forward because he did lose his job. And where there's smoke, there's fire. I believe there was something going on at that school that prompted them to ask him to resign. But I live every single day of my life, terrified that he's going to victimize somebody else or that I'm going to have to see him. Now, I know that if the DA does decide to press charges after all of this, that I will probably have to see him, and if it's for the greater good, I will. But holy fuck, they better help me get therapy because I can't keep doing this. So, there's my update. There's my story on coming forward. I hope that no one who listens to this relates to this in any way, even though I know for a fact that people will, and that's heartbreaking. If you could send me words of encouragement, that would be swell. If you could like this video, subscribe, tell me some topics that you might want to see me discuss. I'm back, baby, in full swing, or full force, whatever, words are hard. But I will be uploading again. It's still going to be like it was back in 2020, where it's kind of sporadic. When something like hits me and I want to talk about it, I will just come on and talk about it. I am working on a video about rape culture right now. I'm doing some research, reading some books, writing some quotes down, re-traumatizing myself a little bit through some of these essays that I've been reading. But I don't know. Like when I set out with this channel, I want to educate people and I want to help people and I want people to know that they aren't alone. So if you have been through any kind of abuse or assault like this, or like not like this, and you are thinking about going to the police, if you have gone to the police, if going to the police was triggering and re-traumatizing for you, I'm sorry, and I'm here. I also have a video on survivor self-care that I will also link in the end card of this. So, please remember to practice self-care, take care of yourself, and enjoy the summer. I will see you guys pretty soon. Have a great day. Goodbye.